Hello and welcome to the first episode of the Awaken Feminine podcast. I'm your host, Kaki Lee, a mindset coach and healer who's on a mission to share the love and wisdom of inspiring women who have gone through adversity and turned their pain into purpose. Today, for my first episode, I am super excited to be interviewing Emily Ghosh Harris, an entrepreneur, speaker, and podcast host. She is the founder of Soul Media, a media company that helps women, entrepreneurs, and conscious companies make global impact. She's also the founder of Soul Women's Collective, a community created to help provide tools, resources, and events to help women on a spiritual path, as well as being the host of the Soul Collective podcast, where she shares the journeys, lessons, and tips of new thought leaders to living a more connected and inspired life. Wow, is there anything like that this woman can't do? So how did I meet Emily? Well, you can say I was guided to her, and now she's actually my business coach. She is such an amazing, beautiful, and loving soul, and I love her so much. My podcast actually took shape thanks to her guidance, and I'm so grateful that I found her. I know she has so much love and wisdom to share with us today. Do I have you, Emily?
Oh, Kaki, thank you so much for that beautiful introduction. It is such an honor to be with you today.
Welcome. Thank you for joining me on my first episode of the Awaken Feminine
Yay.
podcast. I'm so honored and humbled to have you as my first guest. And I also think this is the first time you've seen me with makeup on and not in a bathrobe.
Yes, and you look beautiful.
Oh, thank you so much. So before we jump in, can you just share quickly with our listeners and viewers where you're joining me from?
Yes, I'm actually recording this in Longboat Key, Florida. I usually live in Tampa, Florida, but we are down at the beach today.
Nice. I haven't been to that part of the US, so once everything's open, it'll be really nice to actually get to meet you in person. So hope to
Yes.
get there somehow. So Emily, I'm really excited to dive right in. So let's start with your journey to becoming an entrepreneur. Can you share with us what you were doing before and how you ended up where you are now?
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned that I have a marketing strategy company and I also do coaching. Well, in a previous life before what I'm doing right now, I was in corporate America. So I worked for one of the largest media companies in the world. And then I worked for a Fortune 500 company. And so I was running the digital marketing department for that company and really kind of in that world of work, 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 go, go, go. I was striving for a promotion. That was really that was on my vision board. It was what my heart was set on. And, I really hadn't thought, there was this like inkling of wanting to start my own business, wanting to do something else. But there was all this fear that was holding me back. I had this huge safety net of, the fancy job title and the income and all of that. And so what happened was I got the promotion that I had desperately wanted. And I had this moment of elation, like this is going to be amazing.
Yeah.
And then it was this crash. It was this crash and this feeling of, oh gosh, I'm going to have to work even harder. And is that even possible? I had already been working, nights and weekends. And so, not only that, I also at that time had, you know, my relationships were falling apart and my health was, in a sort of state of crisis because I was so fixated on work. And so it really was this awakening experience of I'm not in alignment. I'm not on the right path. And it really took a lot of going within and realizing that there was a new way for me to go forward in the world. And that was how really my journey as an entrepreneur was birthed. And it was really this, creation of a more authentic and aligned pathway forward.
Yeah. So, you talked about, getting that promotion and then going, what am I doing? So was there actual, do you remember a particular event or was there a catalyst that actually really made you decide to transition to becoming an entrepreneur?
It was really a cataclysmic type of different events all happening at the same time. And I really believe our souls on some level orchestrate, this sort of divine timing, because it was, like I mentioned before, relationships starting to crumble. And it this timing really forced me to go within in a way that I just never had to do before.
Yeah.
I was always externally focused. I was always driven by, checking off all the boxes, whether it was, getting my MBA or being president of my class, or, just wanting to be a minority in this sort of male dominated workplace and getting the promotion, right? And this time was really a gift and a blessing for me, because there was so much pain that it really forced me to go inside in a way that I had never done before.
Yeah, I think a lot of women can, relate to that, striving to really prove themselves in a world where, you need to check all the boxes and really prove to yourself that you are, actually someone that people are worth, looking up to. So, yeah, and I mean, and I can so relate to that as well. So, you talked about your spiritual awakening. Can you give us a bit more information about, how, you know, what events or, how, what it looked like for you?
Sure. Yeah, I wish I could say that it was pretty, but they rarely are, right? And
No.
so it it was a journey. But what I will say is that my life looked pretty glamorous at the time. As I mentioned, I was working in corporate America, and I had, the fancy job title. And, I also was in a relationship that looked so picture perfect on the outside. We
Yeah.
were traveling around the world together, and he was sort of this perfect guy, on the surface. And, you know, we never fought, and we got to, live sort of this really fun lifestyle. And at the time, I found out quite a bit about sort of a secret life, and that was very shocking for me.
Mm.
And so I sort of went into, in the beginning, sort of like this victim role, as I think, sometimes we're conditioned to do, as like, oh, why me? How could this happen to me?
Yeah.
But it really was, what happened was, it forced me to start looking at myself in a way that I had never done before. And I really believe that relationships can be some of the most beautiful gifts that we're ever given. I really believe that relationships are mirrors, and they allow us to see inside of ourselves. And what I saw from that relationship was the way in which we were mirrors of one another. This, in a sense, this, both this tendency to not really be emotionally available.
Yeah.
And I think that is sort of the first step in becoming more aware and growing spiritually, is this ability to recognize your and honor your emotions.
Yeah.
Well, I
Yeah.
had never done that before, right? And so this was a new thing for me before. I was kind of the definition of a people pleaser. That was sort of my role that I played growing up, and it carried on. And what happens when you're a people pleaser is that you don't really recognize your emotions,
Yeah.
how you understand how other people are feeling, and you're so empathic that you really can sometimes easily take on other people's emotions, and not have, the boundaries or the awareness to really understand what you're feeling yourself. And
Yeah.
so that was a first part of my journey.
Yeah. Wow. It's yeah, it is so true. I think we just get conditioned in society. You're talking about being the victim. I think it's just so normal for people to just play the victim. And until you kind of go down that path where you're like, I actually need to, really look at myself and take responsibility, you you don't realize how much you've been playing the victim most of your life.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah,
That's so true. And I think we have a choice always too, right? Like we can always, continue that story of, oh, I'm the victim and, not really. I think we always have a choice whether to wake up and whether to go within or whether to distract ourselves because there's always an easy way to do that. And luckily for me, the universe, God, spirit source sent me many different lessons sort of at that time,
yeah.
so it just really was, it was really forcing me to do that inner work.
Yeah, I love how yeah, as you say, universe, God, spirit, whatever your beliefs are, they just like to just dump everything, all the lessons at the same time. And you're like, okay,
Yes,
right. I got it.
got it.
So, Emily, having gone through all of that, what is your personal mission? What are you here on this earth to do?
I love that question. When I was growing up, I saw my mom suffer from very severe depression, and she's absolutely brilliant, and she's really worked on her own stuff throughout the course of her life. But I saw how limiting that was, and I really picked up quite a bit of my own limiting beliefs in childhood. The fear of not being good enough, or the fear of rejection and abandonment. And so at a young age, I realized what it was like to sort of be in a mental state of captivity. Meaning by that, we're not really captive, right? We're not,
Yeah.
but we're captive by our thoughts, we're captive by our stories, and those define us, and they really prevent us from living the lives of our dreams. And I believe that's the case for a lot of people. And so my personal mission is to help people break free from that mental captivity and really shine bright and live the life of their dreams.
Yeah, I love that. And I know you definitely do that for me. So, I'm really grateful that I was guided to you. So, yeah. So, Emily, I'd love to go even more deep and personal with you. So, are you ready?
Let's go.
All right. So, is there a particular experience you've been through that you found to be the most challenging and led to your biggest breakthrough?
I have to say that the experience that I mentioned before was probably one of the most challenging times of my life.
Yeah.
And it was challenging for a variety of reasons. One, heartbreak
Yeah.
is devastating, right? And we can all relate to that feeling. I'm sure, at least most of us, to that feeling of, thinking that you're going to get married and you found sort of the one and you have this picture perfect fairy tale story, and realizing that it's all a lie. And so that was really, really challenging for me. And at the time, I mentioned relationships being really key, but I believe that our relationships are a reflection of our self worth and how much we value ourselves. And so I could see that when I was looking around, it was like kind of this mistreatment, whether it's like from friends or, not having the type of relationships that I wanted to have, on a deep, sort of trusting, loving
Yeah.
level with my family. And so I realized that the common denominator in that was me. And I really had to do a lot of healing, a lot of inner work to be able to attract and magnetize the kind of
Yeah.
relationships that I really wanted to have in my life.
Wow. Yeah. And that is so true. Like, I think, um, you don't realize how much people are a reflection of you until you get in, until you kind of have that awakening where you actually start looking within. So yeah, that's really amazing. So having been through everything that you've been through, you've had to, as you're saying, you've had to do a lot of healing. What tools or teachers were really helpful in that process for you?
Yeah, gosh, so many. I really went on this journey and this quest of healing, and I sought out so many different modalities. And, I think the first step in that for me was a deepening of trust in myself. and I think you know this on such a deep level, is that when you begin to trust your own inner wisdom, your own guidance, the teachers appear, the modalities of healing appear. But first, that is that step, because I think that we're taught and we're conditioned to really look outside of ourselves. And all of a sudden, it's like, well, I don't have the answers and I'm in this crisis. And what do I do? Like, my world is falling apart. And, there can be this tendency to just feel so afraid and so alone and in a dark place. And it is that process of getting started that I think is so important, of developing that faith and that trust and that surrender and the process. And so that was a really first step, praying for that faith in myself, and starting to really deepen my trust in myself, and also start to, find out about all different kinds of modalities of healing. So, breath work, sound healing, meditation has been huge for me, hypnotherapy.
Yeah.
I worked with a lot of different teachers, and a lot of reading and podcasts, and,
Yeah.
the whole bit.
Yeah. I love that. And yeah, reading and podcasts and having like mentors and coaches has been such a big part of the healing process for me as well. You really need, I feel like, if you really want to change and up level and upgrade, having that person there makes, a big, big difference to doing it all on your own as well.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think it's so important to be seen in an authentic way. I
Yeah.
think a lot of times, especially if you come from the corporate world and you're maybe a woman in a male dominated environment, you're so used to wearing a mask, right? You're so
Yeah.
used to, putting on the strong face, or, if you're a people pleaser, just feeling like everything is okay, or
Yeah.
exuding that, right? But when we're really honoring our own truth, and when we really want to walk a life of alignment, I believe it's so critical to find the people that we can be vulnerable and be our authentic selves with, and really take the masks off. And that's
Yeah.
why I think that, coaches are so important, finding community of people that are, on that same frequency.
Yeah, totally agree with that. So, Emily, is there a particular book that really changed your life?
So my favorite author is Penny Pierce, and
Okay.
she's written, I think, about 10 books, all on intuition and frequency and transparency. And those books were really helpful for me because they helped me understand sort of principles about energy and how to deepen my intuitive skills. So many things. I mean, she's an incredible author. Also, I love the book by Don Miguel Ruiz, The
Yeah.
Four Agreements. And it's such a simple book, but such great wisdom. And I also really love Joe Dispenza.
Yeah.
I've read a lot of his books as well.
Yeah, I'll have to get on to the first two, but I've read Dr. Joe Dispenza's Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. But yeah, I know he's got a few other books which I like to read as well. But there's always so many things to read, right?
Yes, yes, I love reading. I'm an avid reader, and that's
Yeah.
one of the things that brings me so much joy.
Yeah, I love reading too. But with two young kids, I now listen to books more than read.
That sounds like an efficient way to do things.
Yeah, it's the only way to do it right now.
I bet.
So, Emily, if you could, time travel and go back to a younger version of yourself, what advice would you give yourself?
Hmm, that's such a beautiful question. I would tell myself that you have such a big heart, and, not to be so hard on yourself. I really, really struggled with perfectionism and being so critical of myself. I had such a mean voice inside of my head. And, I, I think that I spend a lot of years just being not loving or compassionate to myself. So I think I would travel back and just give my little inner child so much love, and just tell her that, it's going to be okay. And, it really does start with love.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. And I think, so many of us need that, inner child, like our inner child needs so much love because, we've been brought up and there's so many things that happened and there's so much trauma that is unresolved within us that, a lot of us don't even know about.
Yes, yes, it's so true. And the other thing that I would say, one thing that I'm sort of fascinated by is that one of the most common things that people say as they transition and they leave this earth is that they had a regret of not living full out and expressing their dreams. And I find that so interesting. And I can see why that's true because there's so much fear and conditioning and programming that holds us back from really playing full out. And, I think that fear is an illusion. And so that's another piece of advice that I would have to myself is just to start early because I think that fear sometimes holds us back from really, starting a podcast or writing a book or
Yeah.
speaking on stage, right? But we have all that power within us to really go for the dreams that we are passionate about.
Yeah, so true. I love that. Thank you. So, Emily, I want to ask you, what do you believe is the greatest lesson, that you've learned through, everything that you've gone through?
To trust myself, that we have all the answers within. We're taught so in so many ways to look for the answers outside of us. And I think that we have each such a deep reservoir of wisdom that lives within. And so that's definitely been my greatest lesson is to trust myself and to listen to that, voice within myself that knows the way.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, definitely. And I think, as a society, we just are so busy most of the time that we don't even make time to even, listen to that voice. So it's probably there and but it's just drowned out in all the busyness that, that happens in life.
Exactly. Yeah. And we can learn to trust and cultivate that voice. And I think that, we also can cultivate the muscle that allows us to work through fear. Not that fear is ever going to go away fully, but when we do something that we're scared of, it becomes a muscle that we can condition ourselves and to work through that. And it becomes easier. And so, yeah, maybe I have never written a book before, but I've done something scary before. So I can kind of remind myself, I did this one thing and it was scary and I got through it. And, another thing that I remind myself of is that nervousness and excitement live in the same center of the brain. And so I sometimes like to reframe it for myself is that, you're not feeling nervous, you're feeling excited. And that
Yeah.
helps me because, sometimes it really is a combination of both.
Yep. Yeah, totally agree with that. I've been asking myself this question lately whenever I'm scared. Is it going to kill me? Well, if it's not, then it's not real fear, right? It's just what you've, made it out in your head to be that it's a fear, but it's not a real fear.
Yeah, I love that. I
Yeah.
love that because we do, we're conditioned and it is like the survival mechanism, right?
Yeah.
But we're not getting chased by a saber-toothed tiger, it's
Yeah.
it's going to be okay, but it can feel like that sometimes. It can feel very scary. And I think it also, we have one of the fears that I have, struggled with is this fear of being seen. And I think that a lot of women have that as well as, really showing up in an authentic way and bringing your highest self and, really playing full out. And I think that, for me, that is something that has taken practice as well, is to really show up and put myself out there. I was really used to, from having a marketing company is making other people shine. And, and that is a beautiful thing as well. But I think it's important for us to own the magic that we have inside of us.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. And, I definitely also have, the problem of, fear of being seen. So, doing a podcast, on video as well is like a big step. But as you say, it's, practicing the muscle and strengthening the muscle.
Yes, and it's so beautiful. You're meant to be doing this and I can just see it. And that's such a beautiful thing too, because when we do one thing, it's like that muscle that becomes stronger and stronger.
Yeah, I love it. So, we've been talking about, fear and um, kind of limiting beliefs. And right now, with everything happening in the world, there's a lot of people that's, navigating change and starting their awakening journey. So, what advice would you give them, if they've got this fear or limiting belief that is holding them back from, taking that first step?
That's such a great question, and you're right. It is such a challenging time, and I think that people are awakening more in greater numbers than perhaps any time that I can remember in my
Yeah.
lifetime. Right? Um, what I would say is go through the discomfort. Go through the discomfort. It can be so disorienting, and you can want to distract yourself from the pain that you're feeling. And I think when we do have that pain, that there's a tendency to want to numb or distract. And we all have our own ways of doing that, right? For me, it was like overworking and over exercising, and some other, unhealthy or ways of doing that as well. And, I think for everybody, it's a little bit different. But my point is, we could literally spend a lifetime distracting ourselves. And I compare this spiritual journey, the awakening process, is like a caterpillar kind of dissolving itself in a cocoon and reemerging as a butterfly. So there is such beauty and such light on the other side.
Yeah.
And it takes some time, and it takes some time to be still and alone with the discomfort, and that period of really searching and going within and understanding yourself and honoring your emotions. And that just isn't something that we're taught really how to do.
Yeah, I love that. And yeah, I love that, metaphor of the caterpillar and then turning to butterfly because, at the time when you're actually starting your journey, you're just like, what is happening? But, once you get past that, you just, feel so much more empowered you know, and just a much happier person, and you love yourself a lot more. And it's a beautiful, beautiful thing to, work through it.
That's so beautifully said. I think that you're absolutely right. As like, if you had the choice to go back, I would absolutely do it again, even though there was such pain and discomfort, because I wouldn't be the person who I am today if I hadn't, done that inner work.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. So I want to, take a bit of a turn now and talk about self-love. Because for me, self-love was one of the biggest lessons that I had to learn on my journey. So as a busy entrepreneur, what are your top three go-to activities to make sure you really give yourself that, time alone or self-love?
Hmm. Yeah, this was a really hard one for me. It was elusive. I tell this story about how I sort of ranked different values on a scale of 1 to 10 for this exercise that we had to do in corporate America at
Yeah.
the time, and I ranked myself a 2 on a scale of 1 to 10 in
Wow.
terms of self compassion, which is really low.
Yeah.
So I've come a long way, and I believe that it's such an important thing to give ourselves the gift of love. And so some of the things that I love to do are reading, and meditating. I love spending time in nature. I like spending time, alone, and just to have time to process and think and explore kind of. So that's something that really, really brings me a lot of joy, is spending time outdoors in nature. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, you're at the beach, right now. So
Yes.
yeah,
Favorite place
lovely.
on earth.
Yeah, I love it. So, Emily, you are doing such amazing work with your company, your coaching, your, building that community, your podcast, and just being an awesome human being. So, can you share with us what is really setting your soul on fire right now?
Oh gosh, so much. Yeah. I think this is a period of a little bit more stillness. And I'm enjoying that a bit. I know that there's a lot of challenges that come with this time, but I think there's also a lot of gifts and blessings. And one of those blessings is to really connect in with relationships on a deeper level. And so I'm enjoying that, it's certainly challenging at times as well, right? Because we're spending so much time
Yeah.
with one person, but I'm really enjoying that. I'm enjoying the time to, go within and um, be creative, experiment with my business. I'm in the process of writing a book, so that is setting my soul on fire.
Can't
Yeah,
wait.
yeah. So it is just a time of really creative energy for me, which I'm so grateful for.
It's beautiful. It's yeah, it's really nice to be able to just slow down and, really just take some time to really go within and do what you love and not, all the other stuff that people expect of you.
Yes, yeah. I don't think we have quite as many benchmarks, meaning, those external checkpoints of,
Mm,
oh, well, what is she doing or what,
yeah,
and it's nice. We have a little bit too much of that, I think, in my opinion. And so to tone that down just a little bit gives
yeah,
us a little bit more space.
beautiful. So, Emily, thank you so much for sharing your love and wisdom with us today. If people would like to find out more about you or how they can work with you, where should they go?
Oh, yeah. So my website is IamEmilyHarris.com. And then they can find me. I'm on Instagram. Probably that's my favorite kind of social channel to hang out. And my Instagram is Emily Ghosh Harris.
Beautiful. I'm going to have all those details and any recommended resources we talked about available in the show notes so people can reach out to you.
Awesome. Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Thank you so much. And you'll be seeing me back in my bathrobe next time.
You look
No
beautiful in
makeup.
your bathrobe too.
Well, thank you so much. And until next time, I love you. I believe in you, and you're worth taking that first step to the life of your dreams. Bye, everyone.